Susan Sontag once described language this way, it can be poetry or it can be a laundry list, right? Photography is the same way because photographs may be worth 1,000 words, but those words aren't in any particular order, right? And we put them in order. I'm Reagan Louie, and we're sitting in the archives of the San Francisco Art Institute. On my mother's side, I'm fifth generation, which is super unusual because of all the anti-immigration laws that forbid women from coming. On my father's side, he was born in China in a small village in Toisan called Wingwar. So in some ways, I'm like a second generation in a lot of ways. This is my younger brother, and here we are, Christmas time with the aluminum tree and all the trappings of the American dream. And this is me with Wonder Bread and my Chinese hat. So this is kind of the extent, I guess, of my relationship to China. The first work I did in San Francisco Chinatown was kind of a mix of memory, because my family lived and worked there, my own experiences growing up, and then also somewhat about history. I photographed two Chinatowns. The public Chinatown, which is main streets. Back in the day when my father was growing up in the 20s, you couldn't cross Kearny, Columbus, Stockton, or Bush Street. You had to stay within those streets for fear of being, attacked, really. The private Chinatown are the alleyways for me. Like, this is Ross Alley, and this is where life really happens. I was using this old antique camera, the 4x5, which was really slow, and there's a lot of blurs, and those are people in motion, and that was purposeful. For me, they were like symbolic of my family or ghosts, people who had been there before. So in 1980, they opened up the country for students to study in China. So I went to China for 2 months to study in this program. The two things that really struck me, number one, everyone looked like me. That was really an amazing experience because I dropped my sense of being hyper-visible, which you feel like as a person of color here. The second important thing that happened that first trip was the sheer size, magnitude, diversity of China. I didn't realize how big China was, how diverse it was. It wasn't until the second trip with my father that I really began to feel an emotional connection. You know how when you go back to your home, you kind of return to your age was when you left. So he became a 9-year-old. It was very emotional. There's tears in his eyes a lot. Even thinking about it now makes me a little emotional. And that's when I realized that I had work to do. That's when I realized that, maybe it was about finding a place where I felt I belonged. When I entered the house he was born in, the walls were lined with this picture gallery of pictures of our family, the history, because my father had been sending, with his remittances, snapshots of our life in America. This one combines the picture gallery, the ancestors, and my cousin, who could be me, lighting incense to honor the ancestors. I think this was such an important picture for me. This one really broke ground. My timing in visiting China could not have been better, because China was just emerging from the sleep, the dream of the Cultural Revolution. Everybody in 1980 was dressed in Mao suits in gray and blue. By the end of the decade, everyone was dressed better than me. So that's how rapid the change was. And while I was photographing always the everyday stuff, I was always well aware of the historic moment. And then also there was a constant clashing, upsetting my expectations. This is Kentucky Fried Chicken. Location, location, location. It's right across the street from Mao's tomb. This dandy here in Shanghai. I asked him who his tailor was. This was my last trip in 2020. And just to show kind of, again, how things have changed and not changed. Like now there's a cell tower behind the village cemetery. These are two pictures of The oldest friend I have, the first picture above, was made in 1980 when he was a student. And this is a picture made almost 40 years later. So the first picture, his eyes are closed and he's dreaming about the future. Here, 2015, his eyes are wide open, his face is lined with wrinkles, he's surrounded by all the trappings of his second family, and he's not so happy. And for me, it's kind of a metaphor for the transformation that China has undergone and the impact on its people. Every good portrait I make is a collaboration. And so, for example, in 1987, like I said, I shot 3,000 rolls of film. I have about 100 pictures I like. Now that either means I'm a terrible photographer or photography is hard. I think both things may be true. But the ones that really get everything, about the moment and about the historical time too, that's what I'm reaching for. That's not easy,